Summary: Cowspiracy is a documentary about Kip Anderson as he explains what the most destructive industry is and how it destroys the planet. The movie starts off with the deputy executive director of an environmental company telling us we are marching towards the next major extinction we have not seen since the time of the dinosaurs. This is due to temperatures and sea levels rising. The directors of the environmentalist companies explain these related problems further, but when faced with an argument, they stop abruptly. This is a textbook example of the main premise of starting the documentary. Motivation: Kip Anderson grew up with a typical cliché American childhood, but after watching a funny inconvenient truth about global warming being caused by human living standards, he became an OCE, which stands for Obsessive Compulsive Environmentalist. Examples of activities of an OCE consist of separating the trash, recycling, changing the light bulb to LED, and using a bicycle instead of a car as means of transportation. But these changes didn't have much of an effect around him, which made him do more research, which made him stumble upon an article by the UN which made it clear that agriculture has a more deeper impact on the effects of greenhouses than the entirety of the transport section. This made him do more research on agriculture, finding out that there were more devastating information regarding agriculture and the deepening issues surrounding our Earth. This was the start of Kip Anderson making a documentary by spreading awareness and getting people to consider the meat use consumed.
The issues discussed in our documentary are deforestation, climate change, water usage, and the inability to talk about these problems. According to our research, 1 to 2 acres of rainforest in the Amazon is being cleared every second, 91% of which is being used for the animal agriculture sector. In total, the animal agriculture sector cleared 136 million acres of rainforest, whereas palm oil production only cleared 26 million acres of rainforest. Despite these facts, the environmental companies are still focusing on the problems of the palm oil production, even though the animal agriculture sector is considerably worse. Climate change. Climate change is the biggest problem in our modern-day society. The biggest influence on climate change is the animal agriculture sector. Most people have the false assertion about the transport sector being worse. The transport sector accounts for 13% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, whereas animal agriculture sector can account for 51% of the total global greenhouse gas emissions. It is even so that by switching for a vegan diet, you can cut your carbon footprint in half. Water usage. Environmentalists are often told to shower less and consume less water. Even though one hamburger is equivalent to the use of 3,000 liters of water, this equals 2 months of showering for the average human being. It gets even worse when we compare it to the global water usage. Domestic water usage can account for 5% of the total water use, while the animal agriculture sector and its byproducts is accountable for 55% of the total water use. The inability to talk about these problems. Even though Kip Anderson in the documentary went to Greenpeace to address these problems, he was laughed out of the room and was later sent an email by Greenpeace that said we cannot help you any further with these issues. The effects on our society. The issues discussed in the previous segment aren't just a business problem, they concern the entirety of the human race. For example, deforestation isn't only unethical because of the animals that inhabit the Amazon, but it's unethical because the food that is produced in the acres of the Amazon is going to animals that we later eat. This isn't efficient. We can also send the food to people starving in developing countries. Another effect on our society is climate change. Climate change is the biggest problem facing our modern-day society. Climate change causes the Arctic ice to melt, the sea levels to rise, and hurricanes to become stronger and more frequent. The problems of climate change can be catastrophic for the entire human race, and something should be done about it. On the positive note, the documentary Kip Anderson made his wish was granted because Leonardo DiCaprio directed the movie. It premiered on Netflix and it got a broad reach. This means that a lot of people can change their views on their dietary needs and look at a piece of steak at a different way they did before.
So is CSR a factor in the issues mentioned before? All of those issues create a catastrophic impact on the planet. So what do animal agriculture companies do against this catastrophic impact? The sad truth is that most of the companies does nothing against this impact. For example, there are around 2 million farms in the US and only 14,000 of them are organic and sustainable. That is less than 1%. The other animal agriculture companies try to keep all of the environmental impacts a secret. In the documentary Cowpiracy, we saw two obvious scenes that confirms this statement. In the first scene, Kip Anderson, the main character of the documentary, interviewed the government and asked them what they know about animal agriculture and what they know about the negative effects were. They couldn't answer this question, and they didn't want to talk about it. So, Kip Anderson got kicked out of this interview shortly after this. In the second scene, Kip Anderson spoke to Howard Lyman, a former cattle rancher, and Kip asked him, "Do you think there should be any concern of making this documentary?" And Howard answered, "Of course. If you don't realize you're putting your neck on a chopping block right now, then you should stop." So these two scenes really expose the animal agriculture and show how powerful they are and can silence anyone who tries to speak about them. So the animal agriculture companies are not corporate social responsible at all. In contrast, they are corporate socially irresponsible. They don't care how much impact socially the animal agriculture has on the planet, and because they have so much power and they can do what they want. Examples of CSR practices. Because of the animal agriculture is being silenced, I could not find CSR practices, but I could find examples they could use in the future. So on land, integrated pest management, also known as EPM, is a range of methods that can minimize using chemicals. The second one is reducing or eliminating tillage. This is a method that can reduce erosion, improve soil, and not wasting soil. The third one is integrating livestock and crops. This method can produce more efficient and profitable farms. So in the sea, the first example is hook and lining. The second one is trolling, and the third one is traps. So what they all have in common is that all of these examples focuses on bycatching and reducing bycatch. Bycatch is a fish fish that you catch above your desired catch amount. So they could use these examples to release bycatch fast and easily. So what SDGs relate to these CSR examples? First one is good health and well-being. Second one is clean water and sanitation. The third one is responsible consumption and production. The fourth one is climate action. The fifth one is life below water. And the last one is life on land.
Triple bottom line, people, since the animal agriculture industry is known to be one of the most important industries in the US, it comes as no surprise that it will have a very big impact on the people that consume it. One of the few positive outcomes of agriculture is the main involvement in population growth, economic growth, and job opportunities. However, these are the main options viewed by people in the industry. Former environmental workers and whistleblowers in this documentary have noted tons of negative aspects agriculture has given birth to. However, these are the main focusing issues, but mostly on the effect of agriculture had on the environment. Planet. On the planet aspect of the triple bottom line, the duty of a company lies really taking care of the planet we live on. The way animal agriculture can do this is by acknowledging the issues created in their own sector and try to resolve as many of them as possible. The animal agriculture sector can start this by being transparent to nonprofit organizations and to consumers of their food. Nonprofit organizations serve to be the solution to these problems which are commonly known. However, these solutions are short-term. They have a minimal effect on the planet that we live on. Agriculture, however, has proven to be up to 100 times worse in comparison to regular human activities. These problems, when faced with the truth, are often avoided, causing our planet to worsen over time. Profit. There are two main stakeholders taken into account in the profit section of the bottom line regarding animal agriculture. The two stakeholders are the producer and the consumer. The producers are people that earn money by working for companies in the animal agriculture sector. There are a lot of jobs created that serve an important purpose in the production of meat and dairy. A few examples are the animal needs to be fed, the food of the animal needs to grow, harvested, and the butcher shop needs to cut the meat. The other stakeholder is the consumers, who wants to pay less for more of a certain product. The interests of these stakeholders collide if a company decides to industrialize these farms, which only favors the consumers and lessens the employee, which also eliminates one of the few benefits that they have for people in order to try to meet the unsatiable demand of meat and dairy.
Now we are going to tell you all about stakeholders and how they affect each other. The stakeholders involved in the cattle industry are the government, the consumers, the shareholders, the society, the environmental corporations, the farms, the slaughterhouses, the supermarkets, and the environment. These stakeholders have a lot of impact on each other in a lot of ways because they all have a will and an opinion. For example, the farms want to make the most money possible. So some farms, also if it's not ethical, will act against the rules. With acting against the rules, they will affect the society by giving the society more environmental problems to look after. In this case, the environment is the most affected because the cattle industry wants to make as much profit as possible. 51% of all greenhouse gas emissions is produced by livestock. All these greenhouse gases ensure that the earth warms up, which is one of the biggest problems at the moment. The cattle industry also affects the environment by using a lot of water. Animal agriculture is responsible for 20 to 33% of all fresh water consumption in the world. With using so much water, our water reserves are falling quickly. The meat industry impacts the weakest a lot. In our opinion, the environment is the weakest because they cannot do anything against it and suffer from it the most. The government has a very big role in this problem. In America, you have the disparagement law, which means it is against the law to say something you know is not true about perishable commodity. With this law, it is pretty easy for the government to silence people with an argument against the cattle industry, because the average man in America does not know much about pollution problems from the industry. So the government can easily say it's false, what you say, and let you act against the law. With this law, the government has a very important role, because if the people won't speak up, the power will stay within the cattle industry, thereby also the decision to eat meat or not. So as long as this law exists, people won't be able to change the real damage cattle industry does to our world. In the cattle industry, inequality makes the difference between right and wrong. On one side, you have the big meat producers, and on the other side, you have the biological farms, like the ones of Markegard family. Because they are in the same industry, everything they do comes with the same rules. They pay the same price for everything. Because they have the same costs, biological meat and dairy becomes more expensive. If biological meat and dairy is more expensive, less people will be able to buy it. So the market share of the big meat producers will keep growing. This starts the inequality between biological and non-biological meat. As long as the bigger market share for the big meat producers stays, our environmental problems won't leave us. Social justice roughly means everybody should have the same opportunity and same chances with certain rules. So with the problem above, we could say that the cattle industry is socially unjust. Because of the rules in America, not everybody in the cattle industry is treated right. If you think about it, you would say biological farms should have a bigger market share and easier opportunities to sell and less cost. This is what would be socially right, be, because then we would be reducing our environmental problems.
Theoretical reflection. People were refusing to talk about agriculture, and this could be explained with level 1 of Kolber's theory. Is it worth it to put myself in danger for environmental purposes if I do not gain nothing from it? Level 2 is in conflict with the document. The government represents and follows laws and regulations, but might be breaking them themselves by silencing freedom of speech against agriculture. Level 3 takes the universal views to consideration by bringing up the fact that agriculture is not sustainable on any type of land anywhere. Utilitarian perspective can be seen in Kip's view. Greater good for a greater amount of people could be done by stopping agriculture. But since it's such a comfortable economical research, people are ignoring this. We could say that partly the document is against this theory. Kant's theory supports the idea that meat is not good for the planet and we should aim to stop it. And we should aim to stop agriculture even if it means that we're going to face some kind of resistance. We should be truthful about the information we have and the research done about agriculture. Finally, Aristotle's theory could bring out negative idea behind agriculture. Meat makes people happy and we should do what makes people happy, but is it always good, especially in this kind of situation? Then about green, blue, whitewashing and window dressing. Sonoma Organic Milk Company from United States has been providing people with happy cow's milk since 1916. They are practicing greenwashing by coming across very sustainable and eco-friendly throughout their marketing, but the actual farm conditions are shocking and the land is dry and the cow's udders are red from blood. CEO owner John Taylor of the company states that the number one focus should be profitability and it's not possible to provide dairy on a sustainable way because of the lack of good land and the increasing demand of dairy products. Blue washing. We assume that the companies are not following the United Nations Global Compact because of the government's silence and companies' questionable production methods. Sonoma Milk is certified for animal welfare program and organic line, but it is unclear whether or not they're actually associated with the SDG movements. Whitewashing. Organization can cover up information because of the pressure from the government and companies, and especially sponsors. Companies use the whitewashing to provide false information about farming to keep up the positive picture of the product for the customers. And finally, window dressing. KIP struggles to receive information for the document because of the resistance from the government and companies. We can assume that they are hiding their statement or changing them for stakeholders because they would look bad in the public eye and maybe lose sponsors and other investors. And especially since dairy and meat business is such a big factor for the economic growth.
This was our explanation video on the documentary Cowpiracy. Now comes our discussion with the group of ERS, Wouter, Jake, and Jacqueline.
How did you all feel about the documentary? Starting with Jake.
It was very unpleasant.
Why?
Why?
I still don't get how many water could be consumed by agriculture, and then people do not know about that.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. The thing is, cows start when they get born, they're really small, and if they need to grow, they need a lot of water and a lot of food. And every animal converts food to energy, and the bigger the animal is, the more energy the more food you need to convert to energy.
Yeah,
Does
I
that make
agree.
sense in any
Yeah,
way?
totally.
Okay.
I agree. It was really shocking. So things you don't pay attention to in daily life, but if you watch this documentary, it was like really shocking. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this. And then again, oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
is anybody gonna change anything about their lifestyle with eating meat or drinking milk or something?
Going vegan. Just kidding.
I'm not gonna go vegan, but I'm just gonna like less cow now. I'm gonna go to more pig, more chicken.
That's the same.
I think that's the same
What?
problem,
That's the
man.
same.
No, they only cows, so. And then
Yeah,
I
that's
actually
true.
looked up that pig. There's less what's that called? The emission, the gas.
Yeah.
Less
No,
Greenhouse
ground,
gas
but
emissions, yeah.
ground is needed for pigs and chicken.
The less grounds, yeah, that's true, but they
yeah,
still
but
need
pigs get antibiotics spoken in them, so it's
A little bit won't hurt.
let's go. Yeah, but if you eat a lot of pig, you build a resistance to antibiotics at a certain time, so it's not so good for your health also either. So
And none of you, like, is any of you vegan? Are any of you vegan or vegetarian? No?
I
Are
am.
you?
Am I the only one?
Yeah, pretty
Or
sure.
you like
Who
really
knows?
do you don't eat meat?
Yeah, I don't eat meat or fish or chicken.
A little
but
too much.
the vitamins and etc. you're missing, how do you compare
I
with that?
personally I take calcium because
Mm.
that's one problem. But you can pretty much get any vitamins from a vegetarian food if you're not lazy like me sometimes. But I would recommend everybody to try it out just by like maybe twice a week.
I did it for a
Yeah.
week, yeah.
Oh,
After
how was it?
watching the documentary on Netflix, I don't know what
Yes.
it's called anymore.
How was it?
It was hard. It was really hard. Yeah.
Really? What
But
did you eat?
a lot of salads. So
How did you notice any changes on your like overall like mind or like energy or
in that week
yeah,
that I did
like
it. Yeah, actually I did. It sounds weird, but I was really energized and I slept better.
mm,
I slept really good that week.
But Mitch,
Yeah.
if the vegan food actually tastes like chicken, would you consider switching, or would you be like, it's not
I
the
would
same?
if it was not that expensive, because most of the times it's
Oh.
really expensive.
Yeah.
But I
I
would.
understand.
Yeah.
But it's worth it if you see what kind of problems the meat actually has. If it tastes the same, but it's just more expensive,
Yeah, it
it's better
depends
to
on
just pay
Yeah,
more
but
and
you could
not mess up the
also
environment.
switch to organic meat, like meat that's raised by a natural way.
Yeah.
So not pushing
Yeah.
water in them and pushing
Well, actually, I
food
try
in
to
them.
do it when I go to the supermarket. I like sometimes I try to when I see something organic, but like I heard some theories about that in a supermarket where standing organic. I don't know if it was in the ERS class, but that most of the times, or it was on the news, that they just put it's organic, but actually it's really not. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like
I read that
labels
also.
and word they use.
Yeah.
So I don't know anymore. It's just like like everyone says their products are organic and it's
For the money.
it's just for the money. It's just for the statement to make them
Oh,
name look better.
marketing.
It's like greenwashing, actually.
Greenwashing, is
Like,
that a thing?
yeah, it's
Okay.
Yeah,
greenwashing.
yeah.
it's greenwashing.
We
Yeah.
had an example of that the Sonoma Milk Company in our documentary that they were doing organic milk and organic meat.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any like how did you saw the documentary, so you also saw the companies? Did any of the companies pop out to you and be like, actually that's not quite right? Or
Sorry, did any of the companies pop out?
yeah, make like kind of a statement to you, kind of stuck in your head, like of all the examples that we had on the documentary?
Do you mean the environmental companies or the meat production companies?
Yeah, any company, any kind of
The environmental companies, the thing about the documentary is that the environmental companies weren't focusing enough on the meat producers, and they were solely focusing on different problems like palm oil production and that kind of stuff. And that's what the conspiracy in Cowspiracy was about, that the environmental companies aren't focusing on the meat and the dairy. So that's where the problem is. And I think it wasn't a particular meat production company that stands out. It was more that the entire meat sector is just unsustainable, and you need too much space, and there's too much waste, and it's there's too many greenhouse gases, and there's too much food to be made for our food, for example. So there's not one company in particular that stands out. They're just all, I don't want to say evil, but they're all like badish.
What did you guys think of the companies being approached? And whenever they were talking about, yeah, we do this and that, and then when they said, oh yeah, but what about agriculture? Yeah, and they didn't say anything.
I think that's a form of what was it called? Whitewashing. They're trying to just cover up things by
Yeah.
making
we
itself
know.
look good.
But the environmental companies are kind of not responsible for our environment, but they are fighting for it. So why would they not talk about the meat consumption?
Yeah,
Why it's
I
clear,
have
when it's clearly a
I have
problem?
sort of answer on it. So in the US, the animal agriculture is really silenced by the government. In the documentary, we saw a clip that Kip Anderson, the main character, he interviewed the government and asked them about what they know about animal agriculture and what they know about the effects. And sadly, they didn't know anything. That's really suspicious, I think. So in the other scene, they talked to a former cattle rancher, and he said that it's really dangerous, and they're putting their necks on a chopping block by making this documentary. So why is the animal agriculture in the US silenced? That's the real question.
I think because it's like really. I think if the information, the true information comes out, it will shock a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the reason.
It's so big, and the animal agriculture, the power that they have, it's so big because everyone eats food and everyone eats meat. So yeah, they have too much power.
There's
Yeah.
also a lot of profit as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of the point that everybody gets shocked by the documentary.
Why did you choose the documentary to watch?
No, I think you were one of the first to
Oh yeah.
come up with it.
Well, to be honest, I've always kind of like been semi-interested in veganism. And when I seen this with like Leonardo DiCaprio and Cowpiracy, I was like, I need to know about this. I really need to know about this.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
for me, I really like meat, and I don't think I will be ever vegetarian or vegan. So for me, it's like I wanted to see what's like the negative effects of my what I eat, and I want to see the opposite side of this. Yeah.
So you are going
I
to
think
change
it's.
something?
Sorry, you fell away, Jacqueline.
Oh, are you going to change something after watching?
Personally, I don't think, but
I actually did change something.
Yeah, you did?
Yeah, I spoke about it with my family, and I said, well, I think it's very bad we eat so much meat. Like we eat five days a week we eat meat. And I said, I think we should change that to two. So not entirely vegan or vegetarian, but just some less.
Just
Already,
yeah.
less meat already makes a big difference, I think.
Yeah, it does.
That's
Yeah, true.
amazing. What did your family say, Mick?
Only my brother didn't agree because he loves meat.
I think there will always be people that won't agree. Of course.
One day we'll all have to change to non-meat and non-dairy.
Yeah, but it doesn't work if not everybody does it. So if the government just comes in and says you can't eat any more meat, then I'm fine. Okay, then it's just plant-based only. But
That's
if I'm the only one, yeah, that doesn't help.
The
Although
government
that I don't really agree with that one. Like I'm not a vegetarian. I don't think I will be switching either anytime soon. But I think it really starts with one person because if you are a vegetarian, I see it with people around me. Like for example, a good friend of mine, he's vegetarian, and yeah, well, he's always eating vegetarian food. And another friend of mine is also now turning vegetarian because of him. So I think it has kind of a ripple effect when it starts with one person. Yeah.
I agree with Mitch because the government is probably not going to change anything because they will miss a lot of money if the meat production stops.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
I got a last one.
Last one, yeah.
Well, the main reception or backlash that Cowpiracy had was that they felt like people were being scared into turning into veganism. Did you guys feel that effect as well, or was it just
No.
that I feel kind of fucked up?
No.
Nah.
You mean
It's just
socially scared or?
reality, yeah. That's your problem, but it's just reality. If
Yeah.
you go to a farmer, that's what happens. So I don't think so. I disagree. It's reality. If you don't want to see it, don't see it. But it is what happened, and that's how you get your meat.
1 week vegetarian?
I think it's a nice idea. I think we should do it.
I don't know, but I will accept. I don't know if anyone
I will try.
agree.
See, Mick has the same point of view. If everybody does it, I'll do it too. But if I'm the only one, not gonna happen. Yeah, I'm down for the challenge. I will. Yeah, sure.
I'll try also.
And then
Starting now, like
yeah.
What if you feel?
Send your
Well,
meal or something
From tomorrow or from today?
from tomorrow.
Okay.
Always tomorrow.
Okay,
from
okay.
tomorrow, and then 7 days.
Yes, 7 days
Okay.
vegetarian.
And what happens if you fail? We need a forfeit.
No meat. You can eat fish, seafood, but no meat.
I want to really thank you guys for this discussion.
Yes, thank you. Too.
And yeah.
Yeah, same here.
It was good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Unfortunately, Wouter wasn't able to join this discussion. That's why Jutse and Wouter met up later to further this discussion.
Okay, so Wouter, after seeing our documentary Cowspiracy and knowing what the negative effects animal agriculture has, what's your opinion about this?
Well, it was quite shocking for me because I already knew it was bad for the environment, but in this great amount, I never thought about it. For example, the great amount of water is used for producing a simple hamburger. I never thought about it, so it was quite shocking. Now I have a question for you. The farms, they know all the negative effects. Why don't they switch to more sustainable and organic farms?
Yeah, that's because the supply and demand in the US, the demand is so high that they have all the power on the demand. So they can produce a large amount for a low price. So why wouldn't they? Like, yeah, there are a few people who protest against the emissions and the negative effects, but that's not most of the people. So they have too much power, and that's why they won't switch.
Thank you really much for watching. I hope you learned something and have a nice day.